I'm really excited to see Adafruit jump onto the STM32 train by releasing this new Feather board. This is the Feather STM32F405 Express. This is a prototype, so the real one will likely have a different color solder mask, but all the features are here. It's got a beefy ARM Cortex-M4 microcontroller running at 168 MHz with 1 MB of flash. They've also included a 2 MB flash storage chip for even more space, a USB-C connector, a LiPo charger, and an I2C connector that plugs into Adafruit STEMMA-QT or SparkFun Quick boards. On the back, you'll find a micro SD card socket. Now, out of the box, I imagine Adafruit wants us to use CircuitPython with it, which is fantastic, but I've been spending all this time with C and the STM32HAL framework that I couldn't help myself. It's a slick little board packed with features, so I'm going to show you how to use it with the STM32CubeIDE. Feel free to extend this to makefiles or whatever build system you want. The trick is just figuring out how to upload programs to it. To start, we need to figure out exactly which chip is on here, which looks like an STM32F405 RGT6. Here is a schematic of the board that I've got. If we zoom in, we see that there is a basic LED attached to node D13. That's connected to pin PC1, which we'll need for a basic blinky test. It also looks like we've got a 12 MHz crystal to source our main clock and a 32.768 kHz crystal to service the real-time clock. We won't use the RTC oscillator in this example, but we do need to remember that we have an onboard 12 MHz crystal. The SD card slot appears to be using SDIO 4-bit mode, and only the D3 line has a pull-up, which means that we'll need to enable internal pull-ups for some of the other lines. We see that the boot 0 pin has a pull-down resistor, and it's broken out to one of the headers. This will help us switch to the DFU bootloader that comes default in most STM32 microcontrollers. Finally, we see that SWDIO and SWClock are broken out to test points, as well as an SWD header. It'll require some soldering, but that would allow us to use an ST-Link to do step-through debugging. If you're not familiar with the STM32CubeIDE or the hardware abstraction layer libraries, please take a look at my other STM32 videos to get started with them. Alright, let's whip up some code. Open up the CubeIDE and start a new project. The Adafruit board isn't an officially recognized STM32 board, so we'll need to configure the microcontroller settings manually. Search for STM32F405 and select the RG variant. Click Next and give it a good wholesome name, like Blinky. Click Yes to switch perspectives. Under System Core, click Sys. If you plan to do step-through debugging with the ST-Link, you will need to change the debug setting to serial wire. Otherwise, you might find that debugging doesn't work. Go into RCC and change the high-speed clock to crystal ceramic resonator, as we've got an external oscillator connected to the chip. Change PC1 to GPIO output. Remember, that pin is connected to the red LED on our board. Go into the Clock Configuration tab and set the input frequency to 12 MHz, which matches our crystal. Change the PLL source to HSE and connect it to our external crystal, and connect the sys clock to the PLL output. You can click Resolve Clock Issues to fix everything, but it leaves the board running at 50 MHz. We can do better than that, so change H clock to 168 MHz, which is the maximum clock frequency. Press the Enter key and the software will adjust the dividers to make that clock speed work. Click File Save to generate code and open main.c. You can see where the code was automatically written for us to set up the clocks and GPIO pins. In the main while loop, we'll call HAL toggle pin to toggle pin PC1, and then we'll do nothing for 1 second. Save main.c. Right-click on the project in the Project Explorer and click Properties. Under C++ Build, click Settings, and click MCU Post-Build Outputs in the Tool Settings tab. We need to generate a .bin file to upload with the DFU tool, so enable Convert to Binary File. Click Apply and Close, and then click Project, Build Project. Go ahead and plug in the board. To put the microcontroller into bootloader mode, we need to tie the boot 0 pin to 3.3 volts and reset it. So I'm going to drop one end of a jumper wire into the boot 0 pin, which is labeled B0, and drop the other end into 3.3 volts. This is much easier if you solder headers onto the board and use a button on a breadboard, but I didn't want to solder anything yet. Make sure that the jumper wire is making an electrical connection and press the reset button. After a second or two, you can remove the wire if you wish. This will put the STM32 into bootloader mode. If you're on Mac or Linux, you shouldn't have to worry about drivers, but if you're on Windows, you might run into issues. If you installed the STM32CubeIDE, then the STM32 bootloader driver should have been installed for you. But if not, you'll want to go into Device Manager and figure out the name of the attached USB device. Mine shows STM32 bootloader because the driver is working, but yours might show an error or unknown device when you switched the STM32 to bootloader mode. If that's the case, you'll want to go to zadig.akeo.ie and download the latest Zadig software. Install it and run it. Click Options, List All Devices, and select your STM32 device from the drop-down list. Make sure WinUSB is selected as the driver and click Upgrade Driver. This will install the necessary Windows driver to let us send binary files over to the bootloader running on the STM32. After that, head to dfu-util.sourceforge.net and head to the Releases page. Download the latest dfu-util tool for your operating system, which is the Windows zip file for me. Unzip it and then head to your STM32CubeIDE workspace. Navigate into your Blinky project and then into the debug folder. Copy the .bin file and paste it into the dfu-util folder. You don't need to do this, but I find it easier than trying to type out the whole path to the project folder. Open a terminal and navigate to the dfu-util folder. Type dfu-util-L to list out the connected DFU devices. You'll see that our STM32 has several devices that have been enumerated, but we only care about the one with internal flash, as that's where we're sending our program. Notice that the flash is listed at address hex 8000000. Also, the alt number is listed as 0, which we'll need in the next step. Type the dfu-util command followed by a -A0 to select the alt number. Then type -S hex 08000000:leave. This sets the destination address in flash memory and then tells the STM32 to leave bootloader mode once it's done programming. Finally, we add a $D and the name of the binary file. Press enter and dfu-util should upload the compiled binary to the STM32. You should get a message showing that the file was downloaded successfully. With a little luck, you should see the red LED flashing on and off each second. Blinking LEDs is fun and all, but let's do something useful with this board. Since we've got an SD card slot and an I2C port, let's make a quick temperature logger. I'm going to move pretty quickly through the programming, but if you'd like to take your time looking at the code, you can find a link to it in the description. Find an SD card that you can wipe and connect it to a reader on your computer. Use whatever formatting tool you wish, but make sure to format it with FAT32 and a cluster size of 512 bytes. These settings seem to work best with the FAT file system library in STM32. Plug the SD card into the Adafruit board. I'm also going to connect an Adafruit PCT2075 temperature sensor to the STEMMA-QT port. Go ahead and put the STM32 back into bootloader mode. If we look at the schematic again, we see that the card detect line is connected to pin PB12. After playing around with it, I couldn't really get the card detect to work properly, but the Cube software still wants to have a pin assigned to it, or it throws warnings. Start a new project and select the STM32F405 RG again. We want to assign PB12 as input since it's connected to the card detect on the SD slot. We'll also want to make PC1 as output since we'll have it blink status codes. Under System Core GPIO, give PC1 the user label LED. This will allow us to refer to it as LED in our code. Select Crystal Ceramic Resonator for HSE in the RCC category and enable the serial wire debug option in sys. In connectivity, SDIO, change mode to SD 4-bit wide bus. We're going to use direct memory access to transfer data, so enable global interrupts and add RX and TX DMA requests. The default settings should work fine here. Enable internal pull-up resistors for all SDIO lines except D3 and clock. D3 already has one on the board, and the clock line doesn't need one for SD communication. In the USB on the go full speed section, change mode to device only. We'll use the USB lines to transmit serial temperature data, which could also be useful for debugging. We see that PA11 and PA12 are the D- and D+ lines, which we can see are connected to the USB-C port in the schematic. Under middleware, go to FATFS and enable the SD card mode. Change the SD card detect pin to PB12, which is what we saw in the schematic. In the Set Defines tab, we can see that the sector size is set to 512 bytes, and this should match the cluster size we set on the SD card. Go into the Advanced Settings tab. Since we set up DMA for the SDIO, we'll need to enable DMA for FATFS as well, otherwise reading and writing to the card won't work. Go into the USB device settings and change the class to Communication Device Class, Virtual Port COM. Go to the Clock Configuration tab, change the HSC input frequency to 12 MHz, connect HSC to the PLL, and connect the PLL to the main system clock, just like we did in the Blinky example. You can try to run the clock resolver here, but there's a good chance it will just stall. So I'll cancel it and tell the software that I want my main CPU clock to be the maximum 168 MHz. Press enter, and it all seems to work out. Save and generate code. Right-click on the project and go into Properties. Enable the generation of the binary file, just like last time. Before we start writing code in main, there seems to be an issue with the virtual COM port driver in Windows. It might happen in other operating systems, I just haven't checked. Luckily, GitHub user Ant1882 has a quick fix for us. We need to modify the USB-D cdcif.c file and have the STM32 echo the line coding scheme back to Windows. So, in our project's USB-D cdcif.c file, replace the set line coding and get line coding cases with Ant1882's code, which is just copying a buffer, more or less. We'll also need to define this 7-byte buffer before the switch case statement. In main.c, we'll be dealing with strings, so add the common libraries. And for some reason, we need to include that USB header file here too. Otherwise, the compiler just yells at us. Oops, it looks like I forgot to add my initialization code for I2C, so I'll just quickly open the Cube software back up. In the schematic, we see that the STEMMA-QT SDA and SCL lines are attached to PB6 and PB7, which are the I2C1 port. So, under connectivity, we'll enable the I2C1 port. The board already includes pull-up resistors according to the schematic, so we can disable the internal ones. Save and regenerate code. Sometimes I find that regenerating code will revert my project settings, so I want to make sure that it will still generate the binary file when I compile. Since I forgot to save my main.c, I'll need to add my code back in. We see that there's an I2C handle now, and we'll add some constants. The temperature sensor has an I2C address of hex 37, so we'll need to shift that to the left by 1. Temperature can be read from its register at address hex 00. We'll also use a simple return code of hex FFFF. The sensor must return an 11-bit value, so we'll just use a number that's not in that range for an error code. In a minute, we'll create a few functions that will help us read the temperature value through I2C, append text to a file on the SD card, and blink our LED to help give status codes. In the main function, we'll define a few variables. Notice that we're planning to store the temperature log in a file in the root directory of the SD card. The FAT file system library seems to work best with file names in all capital letters, no more than 8 characters long, and with a 3-character extension. The first thing we'll do in the main while loop is to read from the temperature sensor. If we get the error code back, meaning it's not a valid temperature, we'll blink the LED quickly 5 times. We'll then do a little math to convert the 11-bit raw temperature value to a Celsius number. These calculations can be found in the PCT2075's datasheet. We use sprintf to construct a string that will then send out over the USB virtual COM port to our computer. We'll also try to append it to our log file on the SD card. Notice that I'm turning on the LED briefly while attempting to write to the SD card. This is to let you know that you might corrupt the card if you try to remove it while it's being written to. If we get an F result error from the write operation, we'll blink the LED 3 times more slowly. This can help us troubleshoot errors during operation. Finally, we'll wait for 1 second before sampling again. Toward the bottom of main.c, we'll write our function definitions. Reading the temperature consists of making a few I2C calls. First, we transmit the temperature register's address. Note that I'm checking to see if the I2C port is busy or throws an error. If so, we try to reset the port and return with an error code. This should allow us to hot plug the temperature sensor into the board. Then, we read the 2 bytes from the temperature register. We combine the 2 bytes to make an unsigned 11-bit value and return that. Next, we write our append to file function. We first check to make sure that the path and message strings are actually null terminated. Even though it will take many more cycles, I like the idea of reinitializing the SD card every time here, as it will allow us to hot plug the SD card, should we need to. Similarly, we reinitialize and remount the FAT file system. We then use the fatfs function fopen to open the file. We pass it the write and append arguments as we want to continually add data to the end of the log. We get a handle stored in myfile in return. Then, we send our message to that handle using fwrite. Notice that if any of these operations fail, we unmount the file system and pass the error message back to the caller. Finally, we close the file, which will automatically sync writing to the card, and we unmount the file system regardless. For the third function, we write a simple for loop that blinks the onboard LED a given number of times with a given delay. Note that I'm able to call the port and pin with the LED name instead of having to use the exact port and pin. This is thanks to that label we set in the Cube software. Let's build and copy the .bin file to the same directory as dfu-util. We'll call the dfu-util tool just like we did previously, but pointing it to the new temp logger bin file this time. Make sure that the board is in bootloader mode and it should upload. With the SD card and temperature sensor plugged in, you should see the LED blink briefly as it writes the temperature to the SD card. If you remove the SD card, it should blink 3 times. If you remove the temperature sensor, it should blink 5 times more quickly. Let's plug everything back in and test it. Back in our computer, we see that the virtual COM port is assigned COM4. So we bring up a serial terminal and connect it to COM4. Note that the virtual COM port is auto-baud, so you can put almost any baud rate here. We'll use 115,200 to keep it snappy. You should see the temperature being reported in the terminal window. Try touching or breathing on the sensor and the temperature should go up. Remove the SD card from the board and plug it into your computer. I do recommend removing power from the board first to avoid risking the file system being corrupted. Open the file and you should see all the temperature values that we logged. But wait! There's more! I want to show you how to get step-through debugging working. You will need a separate serial wire debug board that connects to your STM32. I recommend one of the official or unofficial ST-Link V2 programmers. Specifically, I'll be using this one supplied by Adafruit. To do this, you'll need to tack a few wires to the SWDIO and SWClock test points on the bottom of the board. I also tacked wires to power and ground. You'll want to connect these to the ST-Link debugger. Note there's also a footprint for a 10-pin SWD connector if you'd like to use that instead. I'm worried it would get in the way of headers on the bottom of the board though. Here's a view of the backside of the board and which pins you'll need. I recommend removing the USB cable and just using the ST-Link to power the board. In the IDE, you can then click the debug button and select the STM32MCU option. Leave the debug configuration settings at their defaults and click OK. Agree to switch to the new perspective and you should be presented with the debugging interface. You can set breakpoints by double-clicking on line numbers, and you can use the single-step buttons to execute one line of code at a time. The STM32 Feather board is a great way to make quick projects. I can throw a LiPo on here and make it a portable temperature logger. Good luck, and as always, happy hacking!